joining us on the West Her hotline following the usual Sean McDermott 4 p.m. or thereabouts appearance with the media. Nate Geary is in for Mike. I am the Bulldog. Hi, Sal. Good afternoon. How are you?
Excellent. Good afternoon to you guys as well.
All right, good. I love excellent as an answer. How are the Bills? How is Sean McDermott? How'd they come out of yesterday's game?
A little banged up, but I think all things considered, pretty good news, I think, in the big picture of things. Josh Allen, of course, first and foremost. The foot injury, obviously, he went to the locker room at halftime. He got x-rayed. He came out. He did obviously finish the game. Sean McDermott said no setbacks from yesterday, but he is considered day-to-day. It might impact his practice status for this week, but he doesn't anticipate him not being available on Sunday. So obviously that's really good news for Josh, but it is something to monitor, obviously, going forward. Daquan Jones has a calf injury. He's also day-to-day. Jordan Poyer, day-to-day with a hamstring injury. We know how those things can linger, but at least you're not hearing week-to-week on any of these, including Shaq Thompson with a neck injury. So Allen, Jones, Poyer, Thompson, all day today. And then Matt Prater and Jordan Phillips, he said, are improving. We'll see where they go.
Okay, yeah. I wonder if they don't find their way to Prater, or if Prater doesn't find his way to being healthy enough, whether they would pivot to someone else this week after how yesterday went. Not that it was a disaster, but we had a mistake on the kickoff and a pretty rank-looking extra point. Like, I don't know. Would you be surprised if they brought more kickers in to try guys out?
I would not be at all. Yeah, we'll see where that goes. And right now, I mean, Badgley's on the practice squad, so, you could just make that change. You could elevate somebody else if you feel that that's the case. I think just the problem is at this time of year, you're not going to have somebody on the ready available immediately, right? That you are really confident in. These guys are out there for a reason, that they're, free agents on the street. So we'll see if they bring anybody in, but I would not be surprised if we heard that.
Right. And is there any reason for optimism about anybody else that's, longer term? Curtis Samuel is easy to forget about. And has there been any update on Ed Oliver that I've missed?
McDermott was asked on both those players today.
Okay.
He said he has no new update on Ed Oliver. The last update we had was that they were, hoping that he could be back maybe for the playoffs. I think that's always been kind of seen as the goal a little bit here, I think, with Ed and, McDermott alluding to that, but nothing concrete there. He didn't really give a definitive answer on Curtis Samuel other than to say that, it's possible that he could, come back. There's no timeline on that, but he didn't rule him out that he couldn't come back the rest of this year.
How surprised, if at all, were you with both Gabe Davis and Keon Coleman being inactive yesterday?
Well, I was pretty surprised, I think, from a standpoint of, how they want to mix and match. But I always thought it would be tough to go with more than 5 receivers. Mm-hmm. The only way I thought that maybe they could do it is if you did something with tight end, but then again, you're going to go with 2 tight ends because Dalton Kincaid's injury they were managing. And obviously he hasn't played as much, but we knew that he was going to play. So that'd be the only area. But to me, it's 5 receivers. That's how they kind of roll. So that gives you a total of 2 guys that have to be inactive. I just don't know where it's going to come from. So I guess the best answer for me here at Bulldog is I'd almost kind of be in the same position regardless of which 2. You know what I mean? Like, I think Mecole Hardman, because he was activated on Saturday, he was playing on Sunday. If he didn't get activated Saturday, it would have been a totally different deal. But the fact that they activated him said they're going to play him, and he's going to have a role in the return game. Now, if you wanted to count him in a separate bucket, I totally get that. Then you only have one guy to choose from. But he is a wide receiver on the roster, so from that standpoint, you're going to have to choose 2. Now, I'm, I guess, a little more surprised at this point that 2 weeks in a row, Gabe Davis, after last week he was inactive against New England and you didn't get much production from the outside receivers. You figured, okay, maybe we'll put Gabe back in there. So from that standpoint, I was a little surprised about Gabe. I just think that Keon Coleman is the last guy on the depth chart at this point, I guess, other than Gabe. And that's why it's not totally surprising when you think about the numbers.
I ask about the 2 of them together like that because I sort of felt like Davis, his getting healthy was going to eat into Coleman. Like, they're not an exact match, but I feel like style-wise, they're both bigger bodies, outside guys that, Davis or Coleman, and really it ends up being a question about Brandon Cooks, I guess, in the end. And I can understand them wanting to see what they've got there. I just wonder how much more rope they're going to give it because it's 2 games in a row with pretty big drops. I mean, yesterday he had to lay out a bit for that, but still, it's both hands on the ball. You come down with that. The one in New England was even worse. And, like, I don't know how much patience they should have with this player who's had opportunities to really impact the games the last 2 weeks and has not come through.
I agree with you, and I do wonder if maybe that changes this week. I guess they wanted to go with a little bit more of a speed group this past week because, obviously we know that Gabe can make some plays down the field, but you think about the guys they had on the field. That would be Brandon Cooks. That would be McCole Hardman. That would be Khalil. Not that he's the fastest, but obviously he's a guy with the ball in his hands. Josh Palmer can get down the field a little bit, so maybe that's how they wanted to, kind of structure it. I think they're just trying to piece the puzzle together as what's the best group to have that complement one another. And you're right, Brandon Cooks at this point, they went out, they got him. I think that they really like his work ethic. They like what he has skin on the wall, right? He's been in the game. He's been with different teams. He's been productive in this league. I feel like he probably gets a little bit more leeway than other guys. But yeah, when you get two big opportunities down the field like that and don't come through, then you probably have to start reevaluating.
What did you make of the game overall? We talked with Eric Wood an hour ago, and even Nate and I were on postgame together with Mike having the day off yesterday too, and I thought it was kind of an aggravating game, Sal. I never really felt like Cleveland was a threat, but you look up and it's a 3-point game for a lot of the fourth quarter, and like, holy cow, I'm one Shadur Sanders lucky bomb to Isaiah Bond away from being on the wrong side of this thing. So it's kind of an odd game. It sort of tested your patience a little bit, but I don't know, I never really felt like the Bills were in great danger. It's a credit to how their defense played, I guess, in the second half, but it was kind of an odd game.
Agreed. I never got the sense that, oh my God, they're gonna lose this game. But I kept getting the feeling of how could they not be widening the lead here, and taking more advantage. Like you're putting yourself in a tough spot here, and you're making this closer. And it would be nice to get Josh Allen out of this game, but you can't right now because of where it is. I just felt that, especially as the game went on, for whatever reason, they were making unusual mistakes they hadn't made. Drop passes were a big deal. You talked about Brandon Cooks. James Cook had one early in the second half. It was at the first play, maybe the second half?
Yes.
Right? He drops one right in his hands, and that's a big gain, a good drive starter. They go 3 and out on that drive after that drive. And then, of course, Dawson Knox has one. Dawson's been so good lately, and the ball just hits him, and he had no explanation for it after the game other than to say that, obviously he felt terrible. He felt like he let his team down. He was very accountable to it. But those are just little things that hadn't really been happening as much lately, and they did in the second half. And when those things happen, then you do open the door for a team that has 3 wins to make a couple of plays here or there. So I don't know if the focus waned or something like that, but it was a reverse of the last few weeks where we've talked about the slow starts. They come back in the second half, and then what happened in this game is they have a nice start, other than the first drive of the game for the defense. Obviously, they let up a drive. You didn't want to see that. They were letting up a drive in the second half till the turnover. The offense scored on 3 straight possessions to begin the game against a very, very good defense. They scored 3 straight touchdowns. That's great game planning by Joe Brady. But what I didn't like was in the second half, when the Browns did actually start to clamp down in the Bills' run game, the Bills didn't have much of an answer for that. Now, I will tell you, I do think after watching some of it, one of the reasons, and I think you have to, respect this in some regard, and I know that this isn't going to be like, some people are going to think like, oh my God, that's terrible, but I understand this. You are so aware of Myles Garrett on the other side, and the Bills were. I think they kind of played a half-field game, to be honest with you. Like, they were so aware of him that I think they basically limited themselves and their own offense on what they were doing because they did not want him to wreck the game.
That's like a lot of rollouts from Josh Allen.
Yes.
More moving of the pocket than I've seen. And so much so that it kind of hurt. Like on the play that Josh Allen gets hurt is him. They're moving the pocket right, but it kind of gets blown up, and he's trying to reverse his field back. And I know that was something it was Spencer Brown, I think, after the game was like, we haven't seen him do that one in a while, like kind of reverse back all the way to the left. And we really haven't. And on that specific play, I think it's the perfect example of what you're talking about, though, Sal, is they limited themselves a little bit, but it was for good reason. I mean, they didn't want the best defensive player in the universe to wreck their game plan.
Right. I agree with you. Like, I mean, if you want to look at it from the pessimistic side and go, oh my God, I can't believe they did that to their own offense and they were, you're so afraid of Myles Garrett. Well, yeah, I mean, like that's what you do in sports. You stay away from the best player on the other team. You neutralize the best player on the other team any way you can. And in this situation, because the Bills were so concentrating on that, I thought that they kind of limited their own offense, but even though and with their offense being limited, they, in the second half got clamped down a little bit, and that kind of really put them in a bit of a bind because Josh is rolling out, he's rolling to the right, he only has certain people he can throw to maybe in that situation. The running game wasn't going as well. So I do think there was some factors when it came to that. They did not want Myles Garrett to wreck this game. I think they felt that was probably the only way that Cleveland could really make a play on defense to try and stay in the game. And luckily for them, and thankfully it didn't wind up happening.
Sal Capaccio on the Western Hotline here on WGR. Bills over the Browns yesterday, 23-20. Another 100-yard game. For now, James Cook is the leading rusher in the NFL. He was, I think, 28 yards behind Jonathan Taylor going into yesterday. He has another 100-yard day, so he's got a little bit of a lead, but Taylor plays tonight against San Francisco, so we'll see. 2 more rushing touchdowns, now 12 on the year. Whatever regression we were anticipating from last year's 16 rushing touchdown season is going to be pretty minimal because he's only 4 away from matching last year's total. So we'll see. Maybe he'll even get there. Who knows? Just Cook, Sal, and the year he's having. I mean, 1,500 yards rushing, 12 touchdowns. It's such a step up from last year when, again, a lot of us in the summer arguing about the contract extension were worried about regression knocking on the door all around, not just on touchdowns, but yards and everything. And the arrow just continues to point up on this guy.
My consternation about the contract in the offseason was not personally regression. I always felt he would be the same player he is, but is that replaceable? You know what I mean? Like, to me, it was always, I don't want to pay a running back that kind of money when my offense has the league MVP at quarterback, and this position is kind of a position where you can plug a lot of guys in behind really good offensive lines, and you're not going to get a ton of, a drop-off in production. I'll raise my hand and say, right. I'm really glad Brandon Beane paid James Cook.
Yeah.
Because without James Cook in the year he's having, I don't know where this offense would be.
Yeah.
Josh Allen said after the game he deserves mention, James does, for every single award. And I agree. I think James Cook is the offensive player of the year in the NFL. He has over 1,500 yards. He has 500 yards more than Saquon Barkley rushing this year. I mean, I know, and Barkley's had a bit of a dip, just to put in perspective what he's doing. But the most impressive part of it to me is, did any of us think James Cook would lead the league in attempts? I mean,
no.
Remember when we had a discussion in the offseason, Bulldog, about, well, we paid you, so we have to give you the ball. I still don't believe that. I just think they're giving the ball because he's great. You know what I mean? Like, that's why. It's not because you got to carry it because we paid you to justify it. I don't think that's the case. I think they're just giving the ball because he's great and he's putting up this incredible year, and that's how your offense is running. So, yeah, he's having a historic year by some of the numbers he's putting up. Buffalo Bills-wise and NFL-wise, he could wind up leading the league in rushing at the end of the year. We'll see what happens today. He's 89 yards ahead of Jonathan Taylor going into tonight. We'll see what happens the final few games. And obviously there's some stuff with where seeding is and how you're playing the last couple of weeks and all that kind of stuff. But I'll tell you, I would be wrong in saying Brandon Beane, like the kind of money he paid him, I was never not for paying James Cook. But to get into the over $10 million a year category, and his cap hit, by the way, this year, only 3.4 because the way they structured it. Next year, it's only 5.8, and then it balloons to 13. So you got a couple of years here with him on these very friendly cap hits at this production.
Yeah, I think what's so impressive, there's a lot of things to really like about this player, Sal, but the long run yesterday was very reminiscent to me of the long run he had in week 2 at New York against the Jets, where, like, it's not just a seam is hit and a safety takes a bad angle and you win the race, right? You got to beat a guy to the edge and you're home free. Like, he's in the middle of the field making choices about where to go, and it's one of these deals where you're watching on TV, at least I was, like, oh, you should have gone that way. Oh, yeah, you should have. That worked out well. His vision along with everything else is really impressive.
I've said this many times, I think, on the air with you, as the best vision I've seen since LaShawn McCoy. I think his vision is incredible. He sees people from all angles, where they're coming from. His ability, he did this again this week. He did it last week. We've seen it many times. The Kansas City, of course, game last year in the championship. His ability to get the ball to the goal line when he's near there is unbelievable, where he contorts his body and he does all these different things, and he stays above the ground and he doesn't touch. Like, he's just such a great athlete. And then today, Sean McDermott is asked a question by Tyler Dunn about James Cook. And I don't know exactly what the question was. I couldn't hear it as well, but I'll give you the answers. I went back and I wrote out the transcript because I thought it was an amazing answer about James Cook from Sean McDermott. He would say, he said the week-to-week intensity is even different than last year. He said the look in his eye each week, the intensity he shows up with, it's been influential on the whole team. He said it's unique for the running back to do this, Sean McDermott. Very few people work harder. He said he's on the sidelines going over to the defensive guys, encouraging them and challenging them. Josh Allen does the same, and that's leadership at the highest level. Who would have thought we'd think of that about James Cook?
Man, no kidding.
Yeah, he's such an unassuming
It's a
personality.
quiet, right. Yeah.
I mean, but I'm telling you guys, and I see it, like James, it's funny, when you're around guys, you get to see their careers develop a little bit. James has always been quiet. But I will tell you, I will echo these sentiments. As somebody who's covered James, got to know him just kind of talking in the locker room here and there, he is like a quiet assassin. Like, he does have a very, and I think intense is a good way to put it for Sean McDermott. I notice that too sometimes on the sidelines. Like, he'll be over by the heater warming up. You just look at him, and he is, I noticed this on the field walking, had to be before the New England game. He was walking around the field, and, I'm doing my thing pregame, and I'm watching these guys, and he just seems like he's in this zone that is hard to describe.
I wanted to ask you, Sal, it was kind of a end of the week, I think it happened Friday, so, news dump Friday when the Bills signed Matthew Judon. But the other piece to this that I found really interesting was with Jordan Phillips not playing and being inactive last week, that Larry Ogunjobi was also inactive. In a game where you were already down one of your defensive tackles, you're now taking out another one. I don't know if that maybe speaks to more of a shift in what they're going to do defensively at defensive tackle. But do you think, and maybe there's a corresponding move here where Sanders now doesn't have to play at all on the defensive end, and now they're just going to keep him on the interior, and maybe over the next 2 weeks we see Matthew Judon come up to from the practice squad into the starting lineup. I guess it's a two-parter on Judon, but I was surprised about Ogunjobi. I don't think he has been playing at some sort of crazy high level, Sal. But, going down two players that were playing the week prior, I thought was notable.
Yeah, I do too. I think part of this is they're getting a little bit of juice out of Andre Jones Jr. He played a little bit yesterday, and he was noticeable on a couple of plays. He's playing defensive end. He played on special teams. He made a nice tackle. He played 25 snaps yesterday. 22 snaps. And then Fedarian Mathis played 25 snaps. I think they're trying to mix and match and see what they have here. You're getting a little bit more run from TJ Sanders in the interior. He didn't have to play outside yesterday. So it feels like they're getting a little bit more creative, or at least trying to figure out what the combination is before they get to the playoffs here. And let's not forget, going back to what Bulldog asked earlier, at some point you might expect that Oliver to come back here, right? So this is, what is the best combination for this team as we go forward into the playoffs? And I agree. I found it interesting as well how they're the wide receiver group, the defensive tackle group, where this is going right now. And I think it all comes down to they just can't, they're trying to figure out the best combination, which isn't necessarily a great thing because they don't have a set group that they're really confident in right now. But I like what they got from Andre Jones Jr. yesterday. I'll say that. I think that he showed that he can play, and maybe that's a guy. And then let's bring Matthew Judon into the equation. Sean was asked about him today. He said, he's just got here. He's learning the system, obviously. We'll see where that goes. I think Matthew Judon does represent that versatile player they were looking for after Michael Hoyt went down. They didn't get it from Morgan Fox. They let go of him. But maybe that's you hope that that's the kind of guy that they can use to kind of move back and forth and inside and outside a little bit.
Sal, how much change is there this week with the holidays?
So normally the team has their big day on Wednesday where they have media day and injury report. The injury report will still have to wait until Wednesday because they play on Sunday, so that's just kind of common. But the Bills are going to practice tomorrow. We're going to have media day tomorrow, walkthrough tomorrow, I should say. There'll be a normal Wednesday. Will be Tuesday this week, if that makes sense.
Gotcha.
Here's the rub, though. People have to be cautious this week. We just got this injury report. Josh Allen, I told you about that and all that. Now, Sean may give us a little update tomorrow. That's fine, and we'll get that. We're not going to get an injury report, though, tomorrow. Even though they'll have the walkthrough, we won't get anything. That won't happen until Wednesday, and by then, there's really no media availability. So then Thursday's Christmas. Guys, we might not really know anything about what's happening this week until McDermott meets with me on Friday in the Extra Point Show.
All right, good to know. That's why I asked. Thank you for that. We'll, I guess, catch up tomorrow because tomorrow's Wednesday, even though it's Tuesday. All right, got it.
You got it.
That's our Sal Capaccio.